blow it away. You're alive. That's pretty good. A lot of people die from this. There's a video on YouTube in India. It happens a lot in India. You must be either super bored or have a lot of air compressors over there. There's this dude working in a factory in India, and it might not be on YouTube, but it is on the internet because it was on one of the articles. This guy's working in a factory in India, and his coworker's like, oh, it'd be so funny. And they show him put the nozzle to just the back of his pants, but like aims it right for the butthole, which is pretty good accuracy. I can't straight up no scope a butthole. Like, I have to, they kind of are in different, they're all in the same place, but it's like the size of the butt and everything like that. I couldn't do this. But anyways, the boss or the coworker, I don't remember which one, this was an actual air compressor, sticks it against the pants, to the dude's butthole, pulls the trigger, the guy dies a day later. I mean, it just completely shreds him open. Normally, they do die. But it happens a lot. It happened in Japan. Some guy was working in a factory, and the workers go, his stomach tends to bloat out. It's like if you put your lips to someone's butthole and went, but your breath was Superman's breath. Just completely destroy you. You're like, Jason, are you just going to tell stories about people's buttholes being blown up until you say Dead or Rabbit Radio is the daily? No. Well, kind of. But a lot of people die. A couple people get their colons blown out. I want to end it with this because I just find this just beyond. I don't know if I find it hilarious or what. But anyways, I find it hilarious. This guy, if it happened to me, it wouldn't be very funny. But this guy was working at a gas station. Okay, he's a clerk working at a gas station. He's looking at his watch. He's like, oh man, I can't wait till I get out of here. This sucks. And then all of a sudden, some robbers come in. Give us all your money. Give us all your money. And he's like, time slows down. And he's like, looking at everything around. What can he use to fight against these robbers? He's looking. And he's like, yeah, I can't really find anything. He puts his hands up. The robbers start to like come around the corner to get his money. And then he's like, oh, wait, now I thought of something. My hands. And he starts fighting the robbers, right? And he's like, beating them up, doing flying jump kicks. Oh, they're flying across the room. Makes a key energy ball, throws it. And the robbers know that they can't get... This isn't a medical journal. No, he wasn't doing flying jump kicks. Or the key energy ball. But this story, the meat of the story actually happened. So anyways, he beats off the robber. That's the wrong one. He finally, finishes off... That's wrong, too. He finally stops the robbery in progress, right? And one of the suspects is, running away. I'm out of here. And then the second one, he refused to be beaten. And while our vigilante hero... Is it a vigilante if you're defending yourself? Just a hero. While our hero is standing there perfectly still. This is true. The villain of the story, the robber, grabs an air compressor nozzle. I guess you knew that was going to figure in here some way. And in one last desperate attempt, he knows he can't get the money at this point. The robbery is over. But he can get revenge. He sticks the air compressor up the hero's butthole, turns it on, blows the dude's rectum out, right? And then this guy lives as well. It just completely obliterated his colon. The doctor said they could see poop floating around in him. Completely destroyed the intestines and all that stuff. So anyways, he lived. He has a bag too. I find that story so funny because, well, okay, funny might not be the right word, but imagine, we've all imagined oh no, we're in the building. We're the only ones that aren't. You know what's funny? It used to be terrorists have taken over the building. Terrorists have taken over your workplace, your school, or whatever, but you are not outside the building. You're like, I'm going to Dairy Queen. You're outside of their capture radius. You're in the bathroom at that time, or you happen to be crawling through the vents. You're like, it's my break. Crawl through the vents. We've all had that fantasy. Man or woman, I don't care. Young or old. You've had that fantasy about terrorists taking over a place you're at and you having to fight your way out and freeing people and stuff like that. I think now it's turned to mass shooters, honestly. I think now it's no longer the organized Eastern European terrorists. They're get in the freezer and you happen to be hiding in the oven of Godfather's Pizza. They're walking by, you're grab one, pull them into the pizza. They're where did Ivan go? Sorry, Ivan, sorry. Yes, Ivan M. is also now an Eastern European terrorist. There goes that Patreon donation. Now I think you're trapped in a mall, and some crazy kid comes in a trench coat with an M1 and just like pop, 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 and you're like hiding in a giant teddy bear, and then you jump out and you grab them. So I think it's weird. I think that fantasy has evolved from the terror. Where was I? Why was I? Oh yeah. Anyways, I think it's so funny because you have these fantasies where it's like it's you and like all these armed robbers come in and you're like, oh, fighting them, and you're picking them up, throwing them down, energy key ball, doing all this stuff. And never in my wild, there have been times where I've been like, oh yeah, dude, and then like the terrorists come in and I'm like hitting them in the face with the shotgun, and I'm like, stay down, all that stuff, right? And never in 1,000 years, oh, maybe I would have gotten shot in the shoulder, or maybe I would have even gotten shot and killed, but at the last minute I'm like, I die, but you lose, and I have their detonator, and they're like, no, and I blow them up, or whatever stupid fantasy. And I know I'm not alone, so I know I'm totally fine saying all this stupid stuff, but never in a wild, maybe I'd get shot, maybe I'd get captured and punched in the stomach a couple times, maybe I would live, maybe I'd die. Never in 43 years of having these hero fantasies of me fighting bad guys did I ever imagine once that Hans Gruber sticks an air compressor up my butthole. Ever. Never would have even occurred to me that at the last minute when I think I have the terrorists on the edge of the building, he's like, you may kill me, but I kill your butthole. And I shoot him and I'm like, I wonder what that meant. Ah! And then my stomach explodes. The world is weirder than anything you could possibly imagine. The fact that you stop a robbery and then the last laugh is 200 cubic feet of air being pushed into your body is bizarre to me. Absolutely bizarre. I never would have imagined that. I don't think anyone would have imagined that. The only person who thought of that was that robber who didn't want to be defeated. Stuck that air compressor up his butthole. It's interesting because this story comes from a medical journal. There's no follow-up. There's no, like, article where the police arrested the guy and it turns out that he was a collector of air compressors. He knew all about them. His father invented the air compressor. None of that. We don't know if the guy ever got arrested. We don't know if the guy's just colon got exploded and the robbers were never identified. Who knows? He could still be out there. Next time you're at a gas station pumping gas, that guy could be behind you, and he's looking over at that air pump, and he's like, if only I could trick him to come a little bit closer. He's like, hey, can you come here? I think my tire's flat. And you're like, yeah, sir, I'll come over there. Feel a little nozzle touch your butthole, and you're like, he strikes again. He strikes again. So, that is basically our body horror episode. I wanted to do something different today. I like doing something different on Fridays. And today you may be like, Jason, you just read a bunch of news and then laughed during it. And that's true. But it's spooky, spooky Halloween month. And there's spookier than the madness of another human being. Whether it's them wanting to blow your mom to pieces, them wanting to castrate you, or them simply wanting to put metal hose up your butthole. Isn't that the spookiest horror of all? Don't worry, next week I'll tell a ghost story. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. Twitter is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys. So that was the episode Body Horror. You got a spider and leg. It's right behind you. I don't know how it's on your leg and right behind you. Maybe you're a circus. What is that? Cirque du Soleil, whatever. Maybe you're flexible. I guess would have just been an easier joke to tell. This type of episode is extremely hard to put together. Out of all the episodes that we've been listening to this week, this one actually took the most work behind the scenes. And it's funny because it's such a basic episode, but finding stories for this podcast is difficult already. And I have a pretty good system. The recommendations from you guys really help. It's already difficult finding at least minimum 2 stories a day. So to put out 50 episodes, you do the math. That is what? I can't do the math. That's about 100 stories I have to come up with each season. And a lot of times, I'm doing 3 stories an episode. Very rarely do I do 1 story an episode, but you will have those as well. But it's hard to come up with 3 stories that are related. Now, I can do more general stuff like UFO or Bigfoot or cryptids. I've done like South American cryptids. I think I had either an episode. It was shape-shifting women of South America. Now you're like, Jason, that's extremely specific. I think it might have been shape-shifting women around the world. What was happening was I could specifically look that up, and you'd get tons of resources on it, and they'd all be on the same page, and then there's 20 of them, and you whittle it down to the top 3 or the top 4 or something like that, however many were in that episode. Doing stuff like this takes a lot of preparation. If you got longtime Dead Rabbit listeners may remember, last October, you remember this? Spooky, spooktacular October, that's not even a word, spooktacular I meant to say. We're going to give you a Dead Rabbit Recommends every single day, and then we're going to tell you the most bone-chilling story. I didn't even try doing that this month, because it didn't work. It was so much extra time researching to try to do that, that last October I stopped doing Dead Rabbit Recommends maybe after a week. I honestly just forgot about that part of it. I had gone into it thinking, I'm going to come up with all these great horror movies. It's way, you like that little noise I made? It was way too much work. This episode, these stories I gathered over the course of weeks. But it's a really good episode, and it's funny because each of these stories could have been in different episodes. And I think that was the original plan. The spider in the ear was supposed to be in other episodes just as an intro story, but the timing never felt right. So I had to go and find, when I say in the episode, I believe I say in the episode, I had to go out and find other stories. That is underestimating it. It took a while. It took a lot of time, and in the meantime, I'm doing all of this other research. You can also tell, let's discuss these stories a little bit behind the scenes too. The spider in the ear is just, there's nothing really to say about that. There's spider in the ear. The cadavers, all the cooler full of penises and the head. It's great imagery. It's not great if you're walking around there and seeing it in real life, but very interesting story. Listening back to me talking about that guy's mom blowing up, I'm like, like I can tell I'm trying to catch myself from making too many jokes during that segment. I can tell I'm trying to catch myself from laughing too much because I'm kind of torn between it. One, between me trying to entertain people and tell this story, on the other hand, this guy's mom died. So that's a tough tightrope to walk. I've had people find this podcast who have been related to these stories. Sometimes talk about John Storm. He was the super soldier who went to the CVS pharmacy and the government tried running him over with a car twice. He knows Spider-Man. He found the episode. That episode, I think the episode was named after him. I was just poking fun at him, and that's one of those episodes that I left a lot out. I always tend to keep something in my back pocket. I did the same thing with Forrest Finn, that story. I don't know if I talked about that. I talked about it on, maybe I didn't even talk about it on the Patreon live feed, but I always tend to keep stuff in my back pocket, because I don't want to completely unload on somebody, and that way if I get any pushback, my response is, well, I didn't say this. Right? Like, you can say I have all sorts of ill will towards you, Mr. Storm, but I didn't repeat this. That's right from one of your videos where you stated this and da-da-da-da-da. So I try to keep it light. I try to keep it fairly light. The same thing with Forrest Finn. Even when, like, his fanatics were coming after me, I still had other info about him. The Guardian actually did a really big expose on Forrest Finn that had even more information than I had, but I try to keep it light, even when I'm talking about this stuff. So I will do episodes on John Storm. I'll do episodes on the guy who made the hat that cures autism. It doesn't. I'm not saying it cures autism. He did. He found the episode. He actually twice contacted me and wanted to debate me on my show, and I turned him down. And the reason why, and it's so funny, the reason why I turned him down, not because I don't love a good debate, and not because I didn't want to give him a platform. I'm a very pragmatic dude. Like, even though I talk about UFOs and aliens and all that stuff, this is the way I'm looking at it. If I interview him on my show, which I would love to have him on the show, or talk to Hans, or talk to the Yon Machine guy, I'd even have John Storm on the show and talk to him. The reason why I don't have them on the show is for legal reasons. The thing with the podcasting world and the YouTube world, let's say I invite Hans onto the show. Wouldn't that be awesome? He's back up to like 3,200 subscribers. His channels get cut down all the time. He just has an audience. But let's say I have Hans on the show and we're talking, we're doing this debate, we're doing an interview, however you want to classify it. That's two different things, just asking him questions. And then first off, I have to get release forms from him. I have to get release forms from him saying that I can edit the episode in any way that I'd want. I always imagine